I stand by the hotel room window, the city lights below twinkling like distant stars in a vast, dark sky, each one a reminder of the life I thought I had. 6 weeks ago, this room was nothing more than a temporary haven from the chaos of my work. But now, it's a silent witness to the unraveling of my world. I can still feel the cold shock that gripped me when I first uncovered the truth about Brittany. I had been away for just a few days, but in that short span, everything changed. A misplaced phone call, an innocuous text, and suddenly, the veneer of our life together was shattered. The discovery wasn't dramatic. It was insidious, creeping in through the cracks of routine, revealing a betrayal so profound it seemed to echo through every corner of my existence. I remember the moment clearly, standing in the doorway of our bedroom, a hollow ache settling in my chest as I pieced together the clues, the unfamiliar scent lingering in the air, the silk panties I found stuffed behind the dresser, and Brittany's evasive answers to questions I hadn't even asked yet. Now, as I gaze out over the sprawling city, the questions remain, their answers eluding me like shadows in the night. I can't shake the feeling that I'm on the precipice of something both terrifying and liberating. A storm that will either cleanse the slate of my life or tear it apart entirely. What happens next is a labyrinth of choices and consequences. And as I stare into the abyss of the city lights, I know the path I choose will determine the course of the rest of my life. It all started back in college, a time when the world was a canvas of endless possibilities, and every day felt like a new adventure. I was fresh from the Marines, still carrying the weight of military discipline, but eager to carve out a different path. That's when I met Brittany, bright-eyed, with a laugh that seemed to light up even the most mundane corners of campus life. We were paired together for a group project, and from the moment our eyes met, I felt an undeniable connection. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and her curiosity about life mirrored my own newfound freedom. As we worked together, those fleeting moments turned into something much deeper. I was drawn to her zest for life, her passion for her studies, and the way she made every conversation feel like it was the most important thing in the world. Fast forward a few years, and life had taken us on a whirlwind journey. We graduated, and while Brittany's star was rising steadily, I dived into the business world with the same vigor I had in the Marines. My career took off in ways I had only dreamed of, with promotions and accolades piling up, each success a testament to the hard work and sacrifices I had made. Brittany and I married soon after, blending our lives into a picture-perfect narrative that seemed to only get brighter with each passing year. We had 2 beautiful daughters, and I continued to climb the corporate ladder, driven by a relentless ambition and the desire to provide a stable future for my family. But as I reveled in the fruits of my labor, I never lost sight of the person who had been by my side from those early college days. Brittany was my rock, my confidant, the person who had seen me through every triumph and trial. Or at least, that's how I thought it was meant to be. Returning from the Marines was like stepping back into a world that was both familiar and new, a place where I had to rediscover myself. The transition wasn't easy, but finding Brittany again made it all worthwhile. We reconnected amidst the whirlwind of civilian life, and it was as though no time had passed at all. The spark that had ignited back in college was still there, burning brighter than ever. Our reunion was nothing short of magical. Her presence felt like a beacon guiding me through the fog of adjustment. We dove into our relationship with a renewed sense of purpose and commitment. And it wasn't long before we were married. The early years of our marriage were a blend of excitement and challenge, but we embraced every moment with an eagerness that defined us. Our life together unfolded with a rhythm that felt right, a beautiful routine of shared dreams and mutual support. The arrival of our 2 daughters only deepened our bond, each giggle and milestone a testament to the love we had nurtured. As I excelled in my career, climbing the ranks with an intensity that mirrored the discipline I had learned in the Marines, Brittany was there, cheering me on and managing our growing family with grace and dedication. Our life seemed like a perfect mosaic of love, achievement, and family, a picture of success and happiness that we both worked tirelessly to build. The evenings spent together, the laughter of our children, the quiet moments of reflection, it all felt like the culmination of everything we had dreamed of. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly flawless existence, there were hints of unrest that neither of us fully acknowledged. The love we had rediscovered and built upon seemed unshakable. But as I would later learn, even the most steadfast foundations can be tested by unexpected storms. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a whisper on the edge of a storm. At first, it was just a vague sense of discomfort that I couldn't quite place. Brittany, who had always been the epitome of support and understanding, began to show signs of dissatisfaction. It was in the little things, the way she would sigh deeply when I mentioned another work trip, or the way her eyes would glaze over with a mixture of weariness and frustration whenever I discussed my next big project. Her once warm and enthusiastic responses turned into curt nods and half-hearted smiles. The evenings that we used to cherish together seemed to drift apart, like the tide pulling away from the shore. I noticed that she was more frequently absorbed in her own world, often spending long hours on the phone or locked away in our home office. Our conversations, once vibrant and filled with shared dreams, became stilted, with long stretches of silence that neither of us seemed willing to bridge. The distance was not just physical, but emotional. Brittany's dissatisfaction was palpable, and it manifested in ways that I struggled to ignore. The intimacy we once shared seemed to wane, replaced by a growing sense of disconnection. Our home, which had always been our sanctuary, began to feel more like a place of polite exchanges rather than genuine connection. Each time I left for another business trip, there was a brief moment of coldness, a fleeting but noticeable chill that settled between us. When I returned, the warmth of our reunions seemed to have faded, replaced by an underlying tension that neither of us wanted to confront. It was as if the very essence of our relationship was slowly slipping through our fingers, and despite my best efforts to reassure her, the sense of trouble grew stronger. The signs were there, undeniable and unsettling, but I was reluctant to face the truth that they might signify something deeper and more troubling than mere dissatisfaction. The first real crack in the facade came on a quiet Sunday afternoon, when I stumbled upon a pair of silk panties that weren't mine or Brittany's. They were tucked away behind the dresser in our bedroom, a place that had always been a sanctuary of intimacy and trust. I remember the moment vividly. The shock that surged through me, mingled with a creeping dread that made my heart pound with an unsettling rhythm. It was as though this small, seemingly innocuous discovery was the key to unlocking a darker, hidden truth. From that point on, I couldn't ignore the mounting evidence of disconnection between us. The affection that once defined our relationship was gradually replaced by a growing void. Simple gestures of love, an unexpected touch, a shared laugh, had become rare, overshadowed by a cold, clinical routine. Brittany's excuses for her frequent absences and late nights seemed increasingly flimsy and rehearsed. She would claim work commitments or vague social obligations. But there was always a lingering edge to her explanations, a hint of evasion that I couldn't quite place. As the weeks wore on, her phone became a fortress of secrecy, with messages and calls that she took in hushed tones and behind closed doors. When I questioned her about these odd behaviors, she deflected with practiced ease, her responses a mix of irritation and impatience. The more I probed, the more she retreated, her demeanor shifting from defensive to dismissive. The disparity between our once vibrant connection and the growing chasm between us became painfully apparent. The more I tried to reach out, the more distant she seemed, as though my attempts to bridge the gap only widened it further. Every subtle clue, every excuse, and every change in her behavior began to paint a troubling picture. It was as if the very fabric of our life together was unraveling, leaving me grasping at shadows of the love we had once shared. The final piece of the puzzle arrived in a way I never could have anticipated, delivered not by confrontation, but through a casual conversation with a mutual friend, Greg. We were catching up over drinks, discussing the usual matters of work and family when he hesitated, his expression shifting to one of unease. With a careful glance around, he leaned in and said, I saw Brittany the other night. She was with someone. Not you. The words hit me with the force of a tidal wave, and for a moment the world around me seemed a blur. I tried to maintain composure, but my heart raced as Greg detailed the evening he had seen Brittany at a downtown bar, her laughter mingling with another man's. He didn't know who he was, but the image he painted was enough. Brittany, the woman I had trusted with every part of my life, was now intertwined in a scene that shattered the last remnants of my denial. I drove home in a daze, the gravity of Greg's revelation settling over me like a shroud. The certainty in his voice left no room for doubt, and as I entered our home, everything that had seemed ambiguous now took on a stark, undeniable reality. The disjointed pieces of our life, the emotional distance, the evasive behaviors, all coalesced into a painful truth. When I confronted Brittany later that night, the anguish in her eyes spoke volumes. The carefully constructed defenses crumbled, and the weight of her actions came crashing down. There was no more room for pretense or rationalization. The betrayal was laid bare, and with it, the final confirmation of everything I had feared but struggled to accept. The life we had built together was now a landscape of shattered trust, and the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty and pain. In the days following the confirmation of Brittany's betrayal, I found myself adrift, grappling with a storm of emotions and a need for direction. My first instinct was to reach out to someone who might understand the depth of my turmoil. That's when I decided to confide in Bill, a friend who had weathered his own storm of betrayal years earlier. We met at a quiet cafe, a familiar haven where we'd shared countless conversations over coffee. Bill listened with a gravity that matched the weight of my words, his expression a mix of empathy and reflection. He had been through something similar, and as he spoke I felt the sharp sting of his past experiences resonating with my own pain. "I know exactly what you're going through," Bill began, his voice steady but laden with a sense of regret. "I thought I could handle everything on my own. I wanted revenge, to make him pay for what he'd done. But in the end, all it did was drag me deeper into a pit of anger and bitterness. It consumed me." He recounted how his own quest for retribution had led him down a dark path, where revenge only fueled further conflict and regret. The actions he took, though initially satisfying, had ultimately left him with more scars than victories. "I thought it would make me feel better," Bill said, "but it only pushed me further from healing. Revenge might seem like justice in the moment, but it's often a trap that blinds you to the real path forward." His words hit me with a harsh clarity. The idea of retribution, once so alluring, now seemed like a dangerous detour. Bill's experience underscored the importance of seeking resolution and understanding, rather than being consumed by the desire for vengeance. As he spoke, I realized that the path to healing and finding peace would require more than just confronting my wife's betrayal. It would demand careful thought, professional guidance, and the courage to face the pain head-on. Bill's advice was a sobering reminder that while revenge might offer a fleeting sense of satisfaction, it rarely leads to true resolution. As I left the cafe, his words echoed in my mind, and I knew that I needed to approach this situation with a strategy that prioritized healing and reconciliation over retribution. As the weight of Brittany's betrayal settled heavily upon me, the next steps needed to be deliberate and calculated. I knew that confronting her required more than just raw emotion. It demanded a plan that would ensure clarity and precision. My first move was to gather solid evidence. I began meticulously documenting every detail, from the suspicious texts and phone calls to the clandestine meetings I had observed. I set up hidden cameras around the house, capturing moments that were too delicate to be left to chance. Each piece of evidence was a fragment of the story that I needed to piece together, not just for my own understanding, but for whatever might come next. Simultaneously, I reached out to a reputable divorce attorney. The consultation was a sobering experience, filled with legal jargon and practical advice. The attorney outlined the process, from filing the petition to navigating the complexities of property division and custody arrangements. We discussed the potential repercussions and strategies for a fair resolution, ensuring that I was prepared for the myriad possibilities that lay ahead. The legal advice offered a framework, a way to navigate the emotional and logistical terrain that was to come. Preparing for the confrontation with Brittany was the most emotionally taxing part. I needed to strike a balance between assertiveness and sensitivity, ensuring that the conversation would be productive rather than destructive. I rehearsed what I would say, trying to keep my tone calm and my facts clear. The goal was to address the infidelity without letting the conversation spiral into an unproductive argument. I also mentally prepared for her reactions, knowing she might respond with anger, denial, or perhaps even tearful pleas. I arranged to have the confrontation in a setting where we could speak privately but safely, away from the distractions and pressures of our daily life. I made sure I had a plan for every possible outcome, whether it was a calm discussion, an emotional outburst, or even a refusal to acknowledge the evidence. The more I prepared, the clearer it became that this confrontation was not just about exposing the truth, but about navigating the difficult road ahead. Each step was a piece of a larger puzzle, aimed at achieving a resolution that would allow me to move forward, whether it meant reconciliation, separation, or something in between. The weight of the decisions I faced was immense, but I knew that facing them with a clear plan was the only way to move through this turmoil and start to reclaim control over my life. The days following my decision to set up spy cameras felt like an endless waiting game. Each evening, I would return home, my heart pounding as I reviewed the footage, searching for the elusive truth that lay hidden in the everyday minutiae of our life. The cameras were discreet, blending into the corners of our home like silent sentinels, recording every moment without raising suspicion. Then, one fateful evening, as I sat alone in the dim light of my study, the video feed revealed something I had both dreaded and anticipated. There was Brittany, her face flushed and animated, engaged in a conversation that was intimate and charged. The man beside her, someone I had never seen before, had a familiarity with her that was unmistakable. They laughed together, their touches lingering longer than they should, their glances conveying a connection that went beyond mere friendship. As I watched, the evidence mounted. The footage showed them meeting frequently, their interactions growing increasingly intimate. The camera captured their secret rendezvous, their stolen kisses, and the whispered conversations that spoke volumes of their hidden affair. Each clip was a painful revelation, a stark confirmation of the betrayal I had feared. The evidence was undeniable. The moments that had seemed innocuous now appeared as glaring signs of infidelity. The video recordings, though difficult to watch, were a crucial piece of the puzzle, providing a clear and irrefutable account of Brittany's actions. Each recorded encounter was a stark reminder of the chasm that had grown between us, a painful testament to the deceit that had shattered the trust I had once held so dear. The discovery was both a confirmation and a catalyst, forcing me to confront the reality of my situation head-on. The footage provided the clarity I needed, but it also deepened the anguish of realizing that the person I had trusted and loved had betrayed that trust in such a profound way. Now, with the incriminating evidence in hand, I had to navigate the next steps carefully, balancing the pursuit of resolution with the emotional weight of what I had uncovered. With the painful truth laid bare before me, the next steps had to be approached with calculated precision. The raw emotion from discovering Brittany's affair was still fresh, but I knew that to regain control, I needed a strategic approach. My focus now shifted to planning a confrontation that would ensure clarity, and if necessary, secure evidence against the lover. The first phase of my strategy involved gathering additional evidence. I enlisted the help of a private investigator to compile a comprehensive dossier on the affair, ensuring that every detail was meticulously documented. The goal was to have incontrovertible proof that could support any legal or personal actions I might need to take. The investigator's expertise added a layer of professionalism to my plan, ensuring that all evidence was legally obtained and irrefutable. Confronting the lover required a careful approach. I needed to choose a moment and a setting that would allow me to address the situation without causing unnecessary conflict or public spectacle. My plan was to arrange a meeting where I could present the evidence in a controlled environment, minimizing the risk of escalating the situation into a confrontation that could spiral out of control. I reached out to Bill once more, seeking his advice on how to handle the situation with the lover. His experience had been a valuable guide through my emotional turmoil, and his insights into dealing with betrayal provided a pragmatic perspective. "It's crucial to stay composed and focus on the facts," he advised. "Emotions will run high, but the more you can stick to the evidence and avoid getting dragged into personal attacks, the better." I prepared for the confrontation by rehearsing what I would say, ensuring that my approach was firm but measured. The aim was to confront the lover with the evidence, making it clear that their actions were not only damaging to my marriage but also unacceptable. I needed to communicate that their involvement had consequences and that I was prepared to take appropriate action to protect my family. Additionally, I consulted with my attorney about potential legal actions. If the confrontation didn't lead to a satisfactory resolution, I needed to be prepared to pursue other avenues to address the situation. The legal consultation helped refine my strategy, ensuring that any actions I took were both legally sound and strategically effective. As the day of the confrontation approached, the careful planning provided a sense of control amidst the chaos. The focus was on handling the situation with the precision and caution required to navigate this treacherous territory, aiming for resolution while maintaining the dignity and integrity that the situation demanded. The day I chose to confront Brittany was one of the most excruciatingly tense moments of my life. I had spent countless hours preparing, assembling evidence, and carefully planning every detail. The private investigator's findings, combined with the footage I had gathered, created a compelling case that was impossible to ignore. I needed to confront her not just to lay bare the truth, but to make sure that the situation was handled with the gravity it deserved. We had planned a dinner at home, an environment that was both intimate and neutral. I had coordinated with my friends, Mark and Bill, who were there for emotional support and to help manage the aftermath of what was about to unfold. They were well aware of the gravity of the situation and had agreed to be witnesses, not only to the confrontation, but also to assist in gathering additional evidence if needed. As Brittany arrived home, I could see the familiar signs of her preoccupied state, her mind seemingly elsewhere. We settled into the evening routine, and as the conversation unfolded, I could sense the underlying tension building. I chose a moment when we were alone, away from the children, to present the evidence. My heart raced as I pulled out the folder containing the recordings, text messages, and other documentation of her affair. The silence that followed was deafening. "Brittany," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "I need you to see something." I handed her the folder, watching as she flipped through the incriminating evidence. Her face went through a spectrum of emotions: shock, guilt, and finally, resignation. The reality of her actions was now undeniable, laid bare in a manner that left no room for denial or excuses. As the initial confrontation gave way to a more emotional exchange, Brittany struggled to articulate her reasons, her apologies mixing with justifications that felt hollow against the stark evidence. The confrontation was painful, a raw and unfiltered exchange that stripped away the pretense of our relationship and laid everything out in the open. After the confrontation, I reached out to Mark and Bill. We gathered in my study, where we discussed the next steps. I shared my plan for seeking revenge, not through impulsive actions, but through careful, strategic moves. My goal was to ensure that the lover faced consequences for his role in the betrayal. With their support, I began plotting how to gather further evidence and create a strategy to address the situation legally and personally. The following weeks were a whirlwind of planning and action. I involved my friends in executing the plan, utilizing their skills and resources to ensure that every detail was meticulously managed. The focus was on creating a comprehensive approach that would address the betrayal and seek justice in a manner that was both effective and controlled. Navigating through the pain and anger, I leaned heavily on the support of Mark and Bill, their advice and assistance proving invaluable as we move forward. The process was grueling, but with each step, I felt a sense of purpose, determined to confront the consequences of the betrayal with the clarity and resolve that the situation demanded. In the aftermath of the confrontation with Brittany, I found myself engulfed in a storm of raw emotions, betrayal, anger, and a burning desire for justice. The immediate priority was to create a plan that would address the betrayal in a manner that was calculated and effective. With Mark and Bill by my side, I knew that their support and insights would be crucial in executing a strategy that was both deliberate and impactful. We gathered at Mark's house, a familiar and comfortable setting, where we could discuss our next steps without the prying eyes or ears that could complicate our plans. Mark, always the pragmatist, and Bill, with his experience from dealing with his own betrayal, both understood the gravity of the situation and were ready to offer their assistance. "The first thing we need to do," I began, laying out the evidence and documents on the table, "is to gather even more proof. We need a comprehensive dossier on the affair, something that leaves no room for doubt." Mark nodded, his expression one of focused determination. "We've got to make sure everything is airtight. The more detailed the evidence, the stronger our position will be." Bill chimed in with his thoughts on strategy. "The goal here isn't just to confront, it's to make sure there are consequences. We need to ensure that whatever actions we take are legally sound and that we have a solid case if it comes to that." To bolster our plan, I suggested bringing in Joe, a hacker known for his skills in digital investigations. Joe had a reputation for uncovering hidden information and navigating complex digital landscapes, skills that would be essential for our plan. I reached out to him, explaining the situation and our need for his expertise. Joe agreed to help, seeing the gravity of the situation and the importance of thoroughness in our approach. The next phase involved coordinating with Joe to delve into the digital aspects of the affair. Joe's role would be to uncover any additional evidence that might be hidden online, email exchanges, social media interactions, or any other digital footprints that could substantiate our case. His technical skills were a key component in ensuring that no stone was left unturned. We also discussed practical steps for handling the lover, focusing on how to expose his actions in a way that would be most impactful. The idea was to create a plan that would hold him accountable while also protecting ourselves legally and emotionally. Bill's experience with navigating the aftermath of betrayal helped us refine our approach, emphasizing the importance of not letting our actions be driven solely by anger. As we finalized our strategy, the plan took shape with a clear focus: gather irrefutable evidence, confront the lover with a position of strength, and ensure that our actions were both justifiable and strategic. The process was complex, involving a mix of emotional intelligence, legal acumen, and digital expertise. The discussions with Mark, Bill, and Joe solidified our approach, turning the chaos of betrayal into a structured plan for seeking justice. Each step was carefully mapped out, balancing the need for retribution with the practicalities of navigating a legal and personal minefield. The path forward was fraught with challenges, but with a well-thought-out plan and a team of trusted allies, I felt prepared to confront the consequences of the betrayal and pursue a resolution that was both decisive and fair. Executing the plan was the most perilous phase of our strategy, and every detail had to be meticulously coordinated to ensure success while minimizing risk. Mark, Bill, Joe, and I gathered late one evening to finalize our approach. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on us, but our resolve was clear. We had to confront the betrayal with a level of precision and impact that would ensure the lover, Stephen, faced the consequences of his actions. We began by outlining the specifics of our approach. Joe had already conducted a thorough digital investigation, uncovering additional evidence of Stephen's illicit activities and financial vulnerabilities. With this information, we crafted a plan to access Stephen's home, secure incriminating evidence, and disrupt his financial stability in a way that was both impactful and legally sound. The night of the operation arrived, and the air was thick with tension. We approached Stephen's house under the cover of darkness, each step meticulously planned. Mark, who had experience with tactical operations, took the lead in ensuring that our entry would be stealthy and efficient. We had chosen a time when Stephen was known to be away, minimizing the risk of confrontation. Joe, with his technical expertise, had managed to obtain a key to Stephen's house through his digital investigations. As we entered, we moved quickly but quietly, our goal clear: gather as much incriminating evidence as possible. We systematically searched the house, collecting documents, devices, and any other materials that could link Stephen to his scheme. The hours felt like an eternity as we sifted through personal files and hidden compartments, ensuring that we left no trace of our intrusion. The critical aspect of our plan was to gather evidence that would solidify our case and ensure that Stephen faced repercussions for his actions. We found a trove of information: financial records, incriminating emails, and evidence of the blackmail scheme he had orchestrated. Each piece of evidence was carefully documented and collected, adding to our dossier. Once we had secured the necessary evidence, we turned our attention to Stephen's financial situation. With Joe's help, we began to implement measures to disrupt his financial stability. This involved accessing his bank accounts, transferring funds to safeguard them, and initiating actions to ruin his credit. The aim was not just to retaliate, but to ensure that Stephen faced significant consequences for his involvement in the affair. The execution of this phase was fraught with legal and ethical complexities. We were walking a fine line between seeking justice and crossing into unlawful territory. Throughout the operation, we remained vigilant, ensuring that our actions were focused on achieving our goals without overstepping legal boundaries. As dawn approached and the operation concluded, we left Stephen's house, the evidence securely in our possession, and his financial stability compromised. The plan had been executed with precision, but the aftermath was filled with uncertainty. We had achieved our objective, but the next steps involved navigating the legal and personal fallout from our actions. The experience left us with a mixture of satisfaction and apprehension. We had confronted the betrayal with a calculated approach, but the road ahead required careful handling of the evidence and managing the repercussions of our actions. The next phase of our strategy would focus on leveraging the evidence to seek justice, while also addressing the emotional and legal complexities that lay ahead. The discovery of Stephen's blackmail scheme was both shocking and disheartening. As I sifted through the evidence we had gathered from his home, a disturbing pattern emerged. It wasn't just the affair with Brittany that was troubling. Stephen's actions extended into a sinister network of manipulation and coercion. Among the documents and digital files, I found explicit records of his blackmail activities. Stephen had systematically exploited vulnerable women, including my wife, using intimate photos and incriminating information to exert control over them. His operation was chilling. He had been using fear and deceit to keep them under his thumb, ensuring their compliance through threats and manipulation. The realization hit me hard. Brittany was one of many, ensnared in a web of deceit far more complex and damaging than I had initially understood. The blackmail scheme was a stark reminder of the depth of Stephen's malice, revealing a pattern of behavior that went beyond personal betrayal to a broader, more insidious abuse of power. Determined to protect those who had been ensnared in Stephen's scheme, I took immediate action. The first step was to ensure Brittany's safety and well-being. I confronted her once again, this time with a new layer of understanding. The blackmail scheme added a dangerous dimension to her involvement, and I needed her to comprehend the full scope of what had happened. We discussed the gravity of Stephen's actions and the potential risks she faced, emphasizing the importance of taking protective measures. Recognizing the psychological impact of the affair and the blackmail, I also sought professional help. I arranged for Brittany and me to see a marriage counselor who specialized in trauma and betrayal. The goal was to address not only the fallout from the affair, but also the emotional damage inflicted by Stephen's blackmail. The counseling sessions were intense and challenging, but they offered a path toward understanding and healing. In parallel, I worked with my attorney to explore legal options for protecting Brittany and addressing Stephen's actions. This involved filing a report with the authorities about the blackmail scheme, providing them with the evidence we had gathered. The aim was to ensure that Stephen faced legal consequences for his criminal activities, thereby safeguarding other potential victims. Throughout this period, I focused on maintaining open communication with Brittany, encouraging her to share her feelings and concerns. The counseling sessions helped us navigate the complex emotions and repair the damage to our relationship. We worked on rebuilding trust and finding ways to move forward, acknowledging the deep wounds caused by both the affair and Stephen's manipulative schemes. The journey was fraught with emotional turbulence and uncertainty, but it was also marked by a commitment to seeking justice and healing. As we continued to work through the complexities of the situation, the focus remained on protecting those affected by Stephen's actions and finding a path toward resolution and recovery. The blackmail scheme had exposed a darker side of the betrayal, but it also reinforced the importance of confronting the truth and seeking professional help to navigate the aftermath. The journey toward rebuilding our relationship began with a painful but necessary commitment to confronting the betrayal head-on. After uncovering the full extent of Stephen's blackmail scheme and its impact on Brittany, it was clear that our path forward would involve more than just addressing the infidelity. It required a deep, introspective healing process for both of us. The first step in our healing journey was to engage in couples counseling. We began seeing Dr. Avery, a skilled therapist specializing in marital issues and trauma recovery. The sessions were intense, often delving into raw, uncomfortable territories. Dr. Avery provided a structured environment where we could explore the emotional and psychological impact of the affair and the blackmail scheme. Each session helped us peel back layers of hurt, enabling us to understand not only the betrayal, but also the underlying issues that had contributed to the breakdown of our marriage. Our counseling sessions were designed to foster open, honest communication. We learned to express our feelings and frustrations in a constructive manner, working through the deep-seated resentments and insecurities that had surfaced. Brittany and I were encouraged to discuss our needs, fears, and hopes for the future. This process of transparent dialogue was both challenging and cathartic, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths and begin the work of rebuilding trust. Alongside the counseling, we made a concerted effort to reconnect on a personal level. We began to dedicate time to each other, free from distractions and daily pressures. Regular date nights and activities that we once enjoyed together helped us rediscover the aspects of our relationship that had been overshadowed by recent events. These moments of reconnection were crucial in reminding us of the love and companionship that initially brought us together. Rebuilding our relationship also involved setting new boundaries and expectations. We worked together to redefine our relationship dynamics, ensuring that both of us felt secure and valued. Brittany made a concerted effort to address the emotional gaps that had led to the affair, and I committed to being more present and supportive in our marriage. We established new routines and practices that fostered a sense of partnership and mutual respect. Forgiveness was a significant aspect of our healing process. It was not an easy feat, but with the guidance of Dr. Avery, we navigated the complexities of forgiveness, understanding that it was a process, not a destination. I had to grapple with my own anger and hurt, while Brittany needed to come to terms with her actions and make amends. In parallel, we focused on creating a more transparent and communicative environment in our marriage. We made it a point to regularly check in with each other, discussing our feelings and any concerns that arose. This open line of communication became a cornerstone of our renewed relationship, helping us address issues before they could fester and lead to further complications. As we moved forward, the journey was not without its setbacks and challenges. There were moments of doubt and lingering pain, but our commitment to each other and to the process of rebuilding our marriage provided a foundation for growth and reconciliation. The experience taught us the value of resilience and the importance of confronting difficult truths with honesty and empathy. Ultimately, the process of rebuilding our relationship was a testament to our shared commitment to healing and moving past the betrayal. It required effort, patience, and unwavering dedication, but with each step, we inched closer to a renewed sense of trust and connection. The road ahead was still long, but the progress we made gave us hope for a future built on understanding, forgiveness, and a stronger bond. With the threat from Stephen and the lingering uncertainty about his potential retaliatory actions, setting up a security system became an imperative measure for safeguarding my family. The realization that we needed to protect ourselves from any possible escalation of Stephen's actions was a sobering wake-up call. It was no longer just about dealing with the fallout from the affair. It was about ensuring our safety in a potentially volatile situation. The first step was to assess our home's vulnerabilities and determine what kind of security system would best address our needs. I enlisted the help of a security expert, Maria, who had a reputation for designing comprehensive and effective security solutions. Together, we conducted a thorough walkthrough of our property, identifying key entry points, blind spots, and areas that required enhanced protection. Maria recommended a multi-layered security system that included a combination of surveillance cameras, motion detectors, and a state-of-the-art alarm system. We chose to install high-definition cameras at strategic locations around the perimeter of our home, including the front and back entrances, as well as any potential access points like windows or side doors. The cameras were equipped with night vision capabilities and real-time monitoring, ensuring that we had constant oversight of our property. Additionally, we installed motion detectors both inside and outside the house. These sensors would alert us to any unusual activity, providing an immediate warning if someone attempted to breach our security. The system was connected to our smartphones, allowing us to receive real-time alerts and monitor the security feed from anywhere. A crucial part of the security setup was ensuring that the alarm system was integrated with a 24/7 monitoring service. This service would immediately notify local authorities in case of a security breach, providing an added layer of protection in case of an emergency. We also set up a plan with the local police to alert them about the potential threat from Stephen, ensuring they were aware of the situation and prepared to respond if necessary. Once the security system was in place, we conducted a thorough review and practice run to familiarize ourselves with its operation. It was essential that every family member knew how to use the system and respond to alerts. We practiced scenarios, including what to do if an alarm was triggered, and ensured that everyone felt comfortable with the procedures. In addition to the physical security measures, I took steps to address the psychological impact of the situation. I spoke openly with Brittany and our children about the new security system, emphasizing that it was a precautionary measure to keep us safe. I wanted them to feel secure and reassured, not fearful. We discussed how to respond to different situations and made sure they understood the importance of remaining calm and following safety protocols. Throughout the process, I remained in close contact with Maria and the monitoring service, ensuring that any issues were promptly addressed and that the system was functioning optimally. I also maintained open lines of communication with law enforcement, keeping them updated on any developments related to Stephen. The security system was more than just a practical measure. It was a reassurance that we were taking proactive steps to protect our family in a challenging and unpredictable situation. It provided a sense of control and stability amidst the chaos, allowing us to focus on healing and rebuilding our lives without constantly worrying about potential threats. As the security system became a part of our daily routine, it helped to mitigate some of the anxiety associated with the ongoing situation. It was a reminder that while we could not control every aspect of our circumstances, we could take meaningful steps to safeguard our home and our loved ones. The financial aspect of our strategy was critical in applying pressure on Stephen, particularly given the extent of his deceitful actions and the financial manipulation he had orchestrated. The goal was to leverage his vulnerabilities to create a significant impact, forcing him to face the consequences of his actions in a manner that would be both effective and legally justified. In our planning session, Mark, Bill, and I gathered to discuss how best to apply financial pressure on Stephen. We had already uncovered evidence of his financial vulnerabilities, including substantial debts and questionable financial practices. The key was to use this information strategically to influence his behavior and ensure he faced repercussions for his actions. Assessing Stephen's financial situation. We started by analyzing Stephen's financial status in detail. Joe had provided us with a comprehensive overview of his bank accounts, credit history, and investments. It was clear that Stephen had significant debts and was heavily reliant on credit to maintain his lifestyle. This financial strain presented an opportunity for us to exert pressure. Strategic financial actions targeting credit accounts. Our first move was to address Stephen's credit accounts. With the evidence we had gathered, we were able to approach his creditors and report the fraudulent activities and blackmail schemes. This step aimed to cause disruptions in his credit standing, potentially leading to penalties and a reduction in his credit limit. We carefully documented our findings and ensured that our communications with the creditors were well documented and legally sound. Disrupting financial transactions. Next, we focused on disrupting Stephen's financial transactions. We worked with Joe to identify any patterns or opportunities where we could legally intervene. This included monitoring his bank accounts for unusual transactions and ensuring that any significant withdrawals or transfers were flagged. Our goal was to create enough financial instability to pressure Stephen into addressing the situation seriously. Legal financial pressure. We consulted with a financial advisor and attorney to understand the legal implications of our actions. They provided guidance on how to navigate the process without crossing legal boundaries. This included understanding the potential outcomes of reporting Stephen's financial misdeeds to the authorities and ensuring that any actions we took were compliant with financial regulations. Creating a plan for bankruptcy pressure. One of the most impactful strategies was to put Stephen in a position where bankruptcy was a plausible consequence. We focused on the following steps. Documenting financial mismanagement. We compiled a comprehensive report of Stephen's financial mismanagement and fraudulent activities. This documentation was essential for demonstrating to creditors and legal entities that his financial instability was not merely a result of unfortunate circumstances, but a direct consequence of his deceptive practices. Pushing for legal action. With the evidence in hand, we approached legal counsel to explore the possibility of initiating formal proceedings against Stephen. The idea was to file a lawsuit that would expose his financial misconduct and potentially lead to a judgment that could force him into bankruptcy. Publicizing the financial issues. As a last resort, we considered the option of publicizing Stephen's financial problems, particularly if it could be done in a way that was both ethical and legal. This included discussing the potential for negative publicity to impact his professional and personal life, which could further pressure him to address the situation seriously. Implementation and monitoring. Once the plan was in place, we executed the financial strategies with precision, ensuring that every action was carefully monitored and documented. Mark and Bill played crucial roles in coordinating these efforts, while Joe provided ongoing support to ensure that our financial interventions were effective. Throughout this process, we maintained a focus on the ultimate goal: to create a situation where Stephen was forced to confront the consequences of his actions and address his financial misconduct. The pressure was designed to be both impactful and legally justified, aimed at ensuring that justice was served while protecting our own legal and ethical boundaries. The financial pressure we applied was a critical component of our broader strategy, serving as a means to hold Stephen accountable and create a meaningful impact. It was a carefully calculated approach, balancing the need for retribution with the practicalities of navigating the complex landscape of financial and legal consequences. Reaching out to a divorce lawyer was a crucial step in navigating the complex legal landscape of our situation. The goal was to ensure that our actions were legally sound and to prepare for the possibility of a formal separation if that became necessary. Given the gravity of the situation with Stephen and the potential for further complications, consulting a divorce lawyer would provide the guidance needed to move forward with both legal and strategic clarity. I arranged a meeting with Laura, a highly recommended divorce lawyer known for her expertise in handling high-stakes cases involving infidelity and financial misconduct. From the moment we began our discussion, it was clear that Laura's experience and insight would be invaluable in guiding us through the legal aspects of our situation. Initial consultation. During our initial consultation, I outlined the entire situation: the discovery of Brittany's affair, the extent of Stephen's blackmail scheme, and the evidence we had gathered so far. Laura listened intently, asking probing questions to gain a comprehensive understanding of the case. She provided a detailed overview of the legal considerations involved, including the potential grounds for divorce, the implications of infidelity, and the steps required to protect our interests and ensure a fair resolution. Introducing the private investigator. Given the complexity of the situation and the need for concrete evidence, I introduced the idea of involving a private investigator to Laura. I explained that we had already gathered substantial evidence of Stephen's actions, but needed additional support to corroborate our findings and strengthen our case. Laura was receptive to the idea, acknowledging that a private investigator could play a crucial role in obtaining further evidence and ensuring that all necessary documentation was in place. She emphasized the importance of working with a reputable investigator who could provide unbiased, thorough investigations while maintaining legal and ethical standards. Selecting a private investigator. With Laura's guidance, I reached out to Michael, a private investigator with a strong reputation for handling sensitive cases involving infidelity and financial misconduct. Michael's experience in working with legal professionals and his ability to provide detailed, legally admissible reports made him a suitable candidate for our needs. I briefed Michael on the situation, including the evidence we had gathered and the specific areas where further investigation was needed. Michael agreed to take on the case, outlining his approach to gathering additional evidence, including surveillance and interviews, while ensuring that all actions were conducted within legal boundaries. Strategic planning with the lawyer. Laura and I then discussed the strategic implications of involving Michael. We focused on how the additional evidence could be used to support our case in divorce proceedings, including documenting evidence of misconduct. Michael's investigation would aim to document Stephen's blackmail scheme and any other relevant misconduct. This evidence would be crucial in establishing the extent of Stephen's actions and their impact on our situation. Preparing for court proceedings. With Laura's guidance, we planned how to present the evidence in court, if necessary. Laura provided insights into the legal requirements for evidence admissibility and the best practices for presenting a compelling case. Protecting assets and interests. We discussed strategies for protecting our financial assets and interests in the event of divorce proceedings. Laura provided advice on how to ensure that our assets were safeguarded and that any financial misconduct by Stephen was addressed. Next steps. After finalizing our approach with Laura and Michael, we outlined the next steps in our plan. Initiating Michael's investigation. Michael began his investigation, focusing on gathering additional evidence and corroborating the findings we had already collected. This involved discreet surveillance, interviews, and analysis of financial records. Ongoing legal guidance. Laura continued to provide legal guidance throughout the investigation, ensuring that our actions remained within legal boundaries and that the evidence collected would be useful in court if needed. Preparation for potential outcomes. We prepared for various potential outcomes, including the possibility of negotiating a settlement or proceeding to court. Laura's expertise was instrumental in helping us understand the implications of each scenario and plan accordingly. Consulting with a divorce lawyer and involving a private investigator provided a structured approach to navigating the legal complexities of our situation. It ensured that we were well prepared to address the challenges ahead, safeguard our interests, and pursue a resolution that aligned with our goals and values. Coordinating with Michael, the private investigator, was a critical component of our strategy to gather the necessary evidence and handle the situation with precision. The objective was to build a robust case that would support our legal and strategic actions while ensuring that every step taken was both effective and legally compliant. Initial meeting with Michael. When Michael and I first met to discuss our plan, it was clear that he had a deep understanding of the complexities involved. We reviewed the evidence we had already collected and identified the key areas where further investigation was needed. Michael's experience in handling similar cases provided confidence that our approach would be thorough and strategic. Outlining the investigation plan. We developed a detailed plan with Michael to ensure that our goals were met efficiently and effectively. The plan focused on two main objectives: recording conversations and gathering evidence of Stephen's misconduct. Here's how we coordinated each aspect. Recording conversations. Legal considerations. Michael emphasized the importance of ensuring that any recordings made were legally permissible. We reviewed state and federal laws regarding consent and recording conversations to avoid legal complications. In our jurisdiction, it was crucial to ensure that any recorded conversations had the appropriate consent from the parties involved. Setting up recording devices. Michael recommended using high-quality, discrete recording devices to capture conversations. We selected devices that could be easily hidden and provided clear audio without being easily detectable. The goal was to record any interactions that could provide evidence of Stephen's misconduct, particularly any conversations related to the blackmail scheme. Strategic placement. We strategized on where and how to position the recording devices to maximize their effectiveness. This included placing them in areas where Stephen was likely to discuss sensitive matters, such as his home office or other private spaces. Gathering evidence of misconduct, surveillance and monitoring. Michael set up a surveillance plan to monitor Stephen's activities. This involved discreetly observing his movements and interactions to gather evidence of his involvement in illegal activities. Michael's team used hidden cameras and tracking methods to document Stephen's behavior and interactions with other individuals. Interviews and background checks. To corroborate our findings and gather additional information, Michael conducted interviews with individuals who might have knowledge of Stephen's activities. This included talking to potential witnesses and conducting background checks to uncover any relevant information. Documenting financial transactions. Given the financial aspect of Stephen's misconduct, Michael also focused on obtaining evidence related to his financial activities. This included tracking any suspicious transactions or financial dealings that could support our case. Implementing the plan. Once the plan was in place, we began implementing the various components with precision. Deploying recording devices. We carefully placed the recording devices in the identified locations, ensuring they were unobtrusive and functioning correctly. Michael's team conducted tests to verify that the devices were capturing clear audio and that they would remain undetected. Conducting surveillance. Michael's team initiated the surveillance operations, closely monitoring Stephen's activities according to the plan. We remained in regular communication with Michael to review the progress and adjust the strategy as needed. Collecting evidence. As the investigation progressed, Michael provided regular updates and reports on the evidence collected. This included recordings, surveillance footage, and documentation of any relevant financial transactions. Reviewing and analyzing evidence. As evidence began to accumulate, Michael and I reviewed the findings together. We analyzed the recordings and documentation to identify key pieces of evidence that would support our case. This process was critical in ensuring that we had a comprehensive and compelling dossier of evidence to present if needed. Strategic coordination with legal counsel. Throughout the investigation, we coordinated closely with Laura, our divorce lawyer, to ensure that the evidence collected was handled appropriately and could be used effectively in legal proceedings. Laura provided guidance on how to present the evidence and prepare for potential court actions. Preparing for potential confrontations. In addition to gathering evidence, we prepared for the possibility of confronting Stephen with the findings. This included planning how to present the evidence to him, managing any potential fallout, and ensuring that our actions remained legally sound and strategically effective. Coordinating with Michael and implementing the plan was a meticulous and strategic process. It required careful attention to legal and practical considerations, as well as a commitment to thorough and ethical investigation. By working closely with Michael and integrating his findings with our broader strategy, we aimed to build a solid case that would hold Stephen accountable and protect our interests. When it came to discussing the situation with Brittany, it was clear that open, honest communication was crucial. The infidelity had created a significant rift between us, and finding a path forward required both of us to be actively involved in deciding how to address the issues at hand. Our conversation about alternative methods and gaining her support for the plan was one of the most challenging but essential parts of the process. Setting the scene for the conversation. I chose a quiet, private setting for our discussion, a space where we could speak candidly without interruptions. Brittany and I had been through a lot, and I wanted to ensure that the conversation was respectful and constructive. I approached her with a calm demeanor, recognizing that emotions were still raw and that we needed to navigate this conversation carefully. Acknowledging the situation. I started by acknowledging the gravity of the situation and the pain that both of us had endured. I expressed my understanding of her feelings and the complexity of the circumstances we were facing. It was important to validate her emotions and to set a tone of mutual respect and understanding. Presenting the evidence. I then shared the evidence we had gathered, including the recordings and documentation from Michael's investigation. I made sure to present the information in a straightforward manner, focusing on the facts and the impact of Stephen's actions on our lives. I avoided placing blame and instead highlighted the necessity of addressing the situation effectively. Discussing alternative methods. With the evidence laid out, I proposed discussing alternative methods to handle the situation. I wanted Brittany to be involved in exploring different options and to feel that her perspective was valued. The key alternatives included legal action against Stephen. Pros: this would hold Stephen accountable and could provide a sense of justice. It might also serve as a deterrent for any further misconduct. Cons: legal proceedings could be lengthy and emotionally taxing. There was also the risk of public exposure and potential complications. Negotiated settlement. Pros: a negotiated settlement could provide a more controlled resolution and might allow us to avoid prolonged legal battles. It could also offer an opportunity for Stephen to make reparations. Cons: this might not fully address the emotional and financial impact of his actions, and there was no guarantee that Stephen would agree to fair terms. Focus on personal healing and counseling. Pros: prioritizing counseling and personal healing could help us rebuild our relationship and address underlying issues. It could provide a path to moving forward without additional conflict. Cons: this approach might not fully address the need for justice or accountability for Stephen's actions. It required both of us to be committed to the process of reconciliation. Financial and emotional compensation. Pros: seeking compensation for the emotional and financial impact of Stephen's actions could provide a tangible resolution and support for our recovery. Cons: it might be challenging to determine fair compensation and could involve complex negotiations. Seeking her input and support. I encouraged Brittany to share her thoughts on each alternative, emphasizing that her perspective was crucial in deciding how to move forward. I wanted to ensure that she felt empowered to contribute to the decision-making process and to express her own needs and concerns. Gaining consensus. Through our discussion, we explored each option's potential benefits and drawbacks. Brittany and I had a frank conversation about our priorities and the emotional weight of each approach. We weighed the impact on our family, our emotional well-being, and our long-term goals. Ultimately, our goal was to find a resolution that addressed the immediate issues while fostering a path to healing and rebuilding our relationship. I made it clear that whatever decision we reached, it needed to be one that we both supported and felt was in our best interest. Formulating a plan together. Once we had discussed the alternatives, Brittany and I worked together to formulate a plan that incorporated elements of the options we had considered. We decided to pursue legal action against Stephen while simultaneously focusing on counseling and personal healing. This approach allowed us to address the need for accountability and justice while also prioritizing our emotional recovery and rebuilding our relationship. Moving forward. With a clear plan in place, we committed to working together through the legal process and seeking professional support. Brittany's involvement in the decision-making process was crucial in ensuring that our actions were aligned with both of our needs and values. Our conversation about alternatives and gaining Brittany's support was a pivotal moment in navigating the challenges we faced. It reinforced the importance of collaboration and mutual respect in addressing complex and painful issues. By working together and considering all available options, we were able to move forward with a plan that aimed to address the immediate concerns while also supporting our long-term well-being. Finalizing the plan with Brittany and Michael was a critical step in ensuring that every aspect of our strategy was executed effectively and in alignment with our goals. This involved carefully coordinating our actions, detailing the exchange of money, and ensuring that all recording and investigative measures were legally and strategically sound. Meeting with Brittany and Michael. We scheduled a detailed meeting with Brittany and Michael to finalize the plan. It was essential that both parties were on the same page and that every detail was clearly understood. The focus of this meeting was to ensure that our approach to confronting Stephen and gathering evidence was thorough and precise. Reviewing the investigation plan. We began by reviewing the investigation plan that Michael had prepared. This included recording conversations, devices and placement. Michael had already set up discrete recording devices in key locations. We confirmed the placement of these devices and discussed their operational status to ensure they were functioning correctly. Legal compliance. We reviewed the legal requirements for recording conversations, including consent laws and the potential need for formal notification. Michael provided guidance on how to handle any legal complexities and ensure that our recordings were admissible in court. Gathering evidence. Evidence collection. Michael outlined the final steps in collecting evidence against Stephen, including surveillance and documenting any interactions related to the blackmail scheme. We discussed the timeline and specific tasks that needed to be completed. Reporting. Michael agreed to provide regular updates and detailed reports on the evidence collected, ensuring that we had a comprehensive understanding of the findings. Detailing the exchange of money. A key component of our strategy was to handle the exchange of money in a way that would serve as both leverage and evidence. We needed to ensure that this part of the plan was executed smoothly and with precision. The details included method of exchange, public setting. We decided to conduct the exchange in a public place, such as a cafe, to ensure safety and minimize the risk of any violent or confrontational situations. This also provided a controlled environment where the transaction could be documented. Hidden recording devices. We plan to use hidden recording devices to capture the details of the exchange and any related conversations. Michael advised on the best devices and placement to ensure clear audio and video evidence. Amount and negotiation. Financial details. We discussed the specific amount of money to be exchanged and any conditions or demands to be communicated to Stephen. The goal was to ensure that the exchange was impactful and that Stephen understood the seriousness of the situation. Contingency plans. We developed contingency plans in case Stephen refused to cooperate or attempted to evade the exchange. This included having additional security measures and backup strategies in place. Coordinating with Brittany's involvement was crucial in ensuring that the plan was executed smoothly. We discussed the following aspects: her role and involvement. Participation. Brittany agreed to participate in the plan by attending the exchange and being involved in the discussions with Stephen. We discussed her role in the confrontation and how she would handle any interactions with Stephen. Emotional preparedness. We also addressed Brittany's emotional preparedness for the situation, acknowledging the stress and potential conflict involved. Support and counseling were arranged to help her manage any emotional challenges. Communication and support. Updates. We established a communication plan to keep Brittany informed of any developments or changes in the plan. This ensured that she was fully aware of the progress and any adjustments needed. Support. We arranged for additional support from Michael and other professionals to assist Brittany throughout the process and address any concerns or issues that arose. Finalizing and implementing the plan. With all details reviewed and agreed upon, we finalized the plan by documenting the agreement. We documented all aspects of the plan, including the exchange details, recording procedures, and contingency plans. This documentation served as a reference and ensured that everyone was clear on their responsibilities. Conducting a final review. We conducted a final review of the plan with Brittany and Michael, addressing any last-minute concerns or adjustments. This was a crucial step to ensure that every detail was covered and that we were prepared for the implementation. Executing the plan. Once everything was in place, we proceeded with the implementation of the plan. The exchange was conducted as planned, with recording devices capturing the necessary evidence. Michael monitored the process and provided updates as needed. Post-exchange actions. After the exchange, we focused on reviewing the collected evidence and planning the next steps. This included analyzing the evidence. We reviewed the recordings and documentation from the exchange to ensure that we had a clear understanding of the outcomes and any additional evidence gathered. Preparing for legal actions. With the evidence in hand, we prepared for any potential legal actions or further steps required to address the situation with Stephen and protect our interests. Finalizing the plan with Brittany and Michael was a meticulous process that required careful coordination and attention to detail. By ensuring that every aspect of the plan was thoroughly reviewed and agreed upon, we aimed to address the situation effectively while safeguarding our legal and emotional well-being. Setting up the exchange strategy. The strategy for the exchange of money was crucial in ensuring that the confrontation with Stephen was both controlled and effective. Our primary objectives were to conduct the exchange in a manner that would maximize evidence collection while ensuring safety for all parties involved. Here's a detailed breakdown of how we set up the strategy. 1. Choosing the location. Public venue selection. Location. We selected a public cafe with a calm, neutral atmosphere. The choice of a cafe provided a controlled environment where the exchange could be conducted discreetly, while maintaining a level of public visibility for safety. It was important to choose a place that was familiar enough to minimize suspicion, but private enough to allow for a detailed conversation. Layout. We inspected the cafe's layout beforehand, noting areas with natural cover where recording devices could be discreetly placed. We aimed to choose a spot with minimal background noise and good acoustics for clear audio recording. 2. Arranging the meeting. Timing and scheduling. Date and time. We scheduled the meeting at a time when the cafe would be moderately busy, ensuring that there were enough people around to deter any potential altercations while still allowing for a private conversation. Surveillance. Michael's team performed a pre-meeting visit to observe the cafe's foot traffic and ensure that the environment would support our needs for the exchange. 3. Setting up hidden recording devices. Device selection and placement. Recording devices. We chose high-quality, discrete recording devices capable of capturing both audio and video. These devices were compact and easy to hide, ensuring they wouldn't attract attention. Strategic placement. Michael's team placed recording devices in strategic locations within the cafe. This included under the table. Small hidden microphones were placed under the table where the exchange would occur. These were positioned to capture clear audio from the conversation. Hidden cameras. A discrete camera was placed on a nearby shelf or table with a clear view of the meeting area. This camera was positioned to capture video footage of the interaction. Personal devices. Both Michael and I carried secondary, concealed recording devices on our person, ensuring that we had backup recordings in case of any technical issues. 4. Planning the exchange. Details of the exchange. Amount of money. We agreed on the amount of money to be exchanged and prepared it in a manner that would be difficult to trace or dispute. The cash was organized in a way that would not raise suspicion. Communication. We planned the communication carefully, ensuring that any demands or statements made during the exchange were clear and recorded. The goal was to make sure that Stephen understood the seriousness of the situation and the consequences of his actions. 5. Managing the confrontation. Role assignments. My role. I would be responsible for initiating the conversation, presenting the money, and addressing Stephen's response. My approach was to remain calm and assertive, focusing on the facts and the evidence we had gathered. Michael's role. Michael would act as an observer, managing any logistical aspects, and ensuring that the recording devices functioned correctly. He would also be prepared to intervene if the situation became confrontational or if additional security was needed. 6. Preparing for contingencies. Safety measures. Backup plans. We developed backup plans in case Stephen refused to cooperate or attempted to evade the exchange. This included having additional security measures in place, such as a nearby security team or the ability to quickly contact local authorities if necessary. Emergency procedures. We established emergency procedures to handle any potential escalation. This included knowing how to de-escalate the situation and having a plan to safely exit the location if needed. 7. Rehearsing the strategy. Final review and rehearsal. We conducted a final review and rehearsal of the strategy to ensure that every detail was covered. This included reviewing the location, the placement of recording devices, and the roles of each participant in the exchange. Mock exchange. A mock exchange was performed to simulate the actual meeting and identify any potential issues. This rehearsal helped to ensure that everyone was familiar with their roles in the process. 8. Executing the plan. On the day of the exchange, arrival and setup. We arrived at the cafe early to set up the recording devices and ensure that everything was in place. Michael's team verified that all equipment was functioning correctly. Meeting Stephen. Stephen was met at the scheduled time and location. The exchange was conducted according to the plan, with clear communication and all interactions recorded. Monitoring. Throughout the meeting, Michael and I monitored the situation closely, ensuring that the process remained controlled and that all evidence was captured accurately. Post-exchange actions. Reviewing evidence. After the exchange, we reviewed the recordings and documentation to assess the results and determine the next steps. Legal and strategic planning. Based on the evidence collected, we worked with our legal team to plan any further actions required to address the situation and protect our interests. By meticulously planning and executing the exchange strategy, we aimed to ensure that the confrontation with Stephen was handled effectively while safeguarding our legal and personal interests. The careful coordination of recording devices, location, and roles was crucial in achieving a successful resolution. Preparing for the exchange. Preparing for the exchange of money was a meticulous process that required careful consideration of method, safety, and logistical details. Here's how we ensured everything was in place for a smooth and controlled confrontation. 1. Discussing the method of giving money. Preparation of funds. Amount and form. We decided on the exact amount of money to be exchanged. The cash was organized in a manner that was discreet but easily accessible. It was divided into bundles and placed in unmarked envelopes to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. Presentation. The money would be presented in a nonchalant manner, avoiding any actions that could arouse suspicion. I planned to place the envelopes on the table as part of a routine conversation, making it seem like a normal transaction rather than a high-stakes exchange. Exchange procedure. Timing. The exchange was to be conducted at a pre-agreed point during the conversation, ensuring it flowed naturally within the discussion. The timing was planned to coincide with a critical moment when Stephen would be most receptive to the offer. Handling the cash. The handling of the cash was planned to be smooth and unremarkable. I would place the envelopes on the table and clearly state the purpose of the exchange, ensuring that it was documented both visually and audibly. 2. Ensuring safety. During the confrontation. Security measures, personal safety. We discussed personal safety extensively, knowing that the situation could potentially become confrontational. Both Michael and I would be aware of our surroundings and ready to act if necessary. We also arranged for an unobtrusive security presence nearby, ready to intervene if needed. Emergency contacts. We had a direct line to local authorities and emergency services. Michael's team had a plan to contact them quickly if the situation escalated. Additionally, we ensured our cell phones were fully charged and easily accessible. Surveillance and documentation, recording devices. All recording devices were checked and rechecked to ensure functionality. We verified that they were properly hidden and positioned to capture clear audio and video. Backup devices were also on hand to ensure we had comprehensive coverage. Surveillance coordination. Michael coordinated with a discrete surveillance team to monitor the exchange from a nearby location. This team was tasked with observing the area and providing immediate assistance if required. 3. Contingency plans. Handling non-cooperation, refusal or evasion. In case Stephen refused to cooperate or attempted to evade the exchange, we had a plan to handle the situation calmly and assertively. The primary goal was to ensure the safety of everyone involved while still attempting to complete the exchange. De-escalation tactics. We reviewed de-escalation tactics to manage any potential conflict. This included using calm, clear communication and maintaining a non-threatening posture. If necessary, we were prepared to disengage and seek alternative methods to address the situation. 4. Final review of the plan role. Clarification. My role. I was responsible for initiating the conversation, presenting the money, and handling any negotiations or demands. I planned to stay focused and composed, ensuring that the exchange was conducted professionally. Michael's role. Michael would oversee the technical aspects, manage the recording devices, and ensure that the security measures were in place. He was also prepared to act as a backup if the situation required additional intervention. Mock scenarios. Rehearsal. We conducted a rehearsal of the exchange scenario, practicing the key actions and responses. This helped to identify any potential issues and ensure that both Michael and I were familiar with our roles and the process. 5. Communication and coordination briefing. Pre-meeting briefing. We held a final briefing with Brittany and Michael to review the details of the plan. This included discussing the timing, location, and specific actions for the exchange. We also addressed any last-minute concerns or questions. Coordination. Michael coordinated with the surveillance team and ensured that all logistics were in place. This included confirming the setup of recording devices and security measures. 6. Execution preparation. Arriving early. Setup. We arrived at the cafe early to set up recording devices and ensure everything was in place. This allowed us to address any last-minute adjustments and verify that all equipment was functioning properly. Final checks. We performed final checks on the recording devices, cash handling procedures, and security measures. Ensuring everything was in order provided confidence that the exchange would proceed smoothly. By carefully preparing for the exchange, discussing the method of giving money, and implementing comprehensive safety measures, we aimed to ensure a successful and controlled confrontation. The focus was on managing the situation professionally while safeguarding the interests and safety of everyone involved. Executing the exchange plan, arrival and setup, pre-meeting. Preparation, arriving early. Michael and I arrived at the cafe well before the scheduled meeting time. This allowed us to set up and verify that all equipment and preparations were in place. We chose a table in a discreet corner that provided a good view of the entrance and ensured minimal disruption from other patrons. Equipment check. We double-checked the hidden recording devices. The microphones and cameras were positioned under the table and on a nearby shelf, respectively. We confirmed that they were operating correctly and capturing clear audio and video. Backup devices were also in place, just in case. The meeting, arrival of Stephen. Observing entry. We observed Stephen as he entered the cafe. Michael and I maintained a casual demeanor to avoid drawing attention. Stephen was approached by a host and led to the table where we awaited him. Welcoming Stephen. I greeted Stephen warmly, aiming to establish a relaxed atmosphere. We engaged in small talk initially to ease into the conversation and make him comfortable. Conducting the exchange. Initiating the conversation. Setting the stage. After some casual conversation, I transitioned to the main topic of the meeting. I spoke clearly and calmly, introducing the purpose of the exchange and the money involved. Presenting the money. I took out the envelopes containing the cash and placed them on the table. The action was executed smoothly, ensuring that it seemed like a routine part of the conversation rather than a high-stakes transaction. During the exchange, dialogue, and negotiation. As we discussed the terms and expectations, I made sure to keep the conversation focused and professional. I used clear and precise language to convey the seriousness of the situation. The hidden recording devices captured every word, ensuring that all aspects of the exchange were documented. Monitoring reactions. Michael discreetly observed Stephen's reactions and body language. His role was to ensure that the exchange went according to plan and to handle any unforeseen developments. Addressing unforeseen issues, handling refusals or disruptions. Initial refusal. If Stephen hesitated or refused to accept the money, I was prepared with a calm and assertive response. I aimed to address any concerns he had and to maintain control of the situation. Conflict management. In case of any signs of aggression or confrontation, Michael was prepared to intervene discreetly. We had a prearranged signal for him to act, whether to de-escalate the situation or to involve additional security if necessary. Concluding the meeting, finalizing the exchange. Closure. Once the money was accepted and the terms were understood, I concluded the meeting by summarizing the key points and confirming that both parties were in agreement. I ensured that any remaining questions were addressed, and the conversation ended on a professional note. Departure. Stephen departed from the cafe. Michael and I stayed behind briefly to review the recordings and ensure that all evidence was intact. We carefully packed up our equipment, leaving no trace of our setup. Post-meeting actions. Reviewing evidence. Immediate review. Michael and I reviewed the recordings and notes from the meeting to assess the effectiveness of the exchange. We confirmed that the audio and video captured all necessary details. Analysis. The evidence collected was analyzed to determine the next steps. This included assessing Stephen's compliance and preparing for any follow-up actions required. Planning next steps. Legal consultation. With the evidence from the exchange, we coordinated with our legal team to plan any further actions needed to address Stephen's behavior and protect our interests. Ongoing monitoring. We continued to monitor the situation for any further developments or issues that might arise. Executing the exchange plan required careful coordination and attention to detail. By following the strategy meticulously, we aimed to handle the confrontation professionally, ensuring that all actions were documented and that the process was conducted smoothly and safely. Confrontation at the exchange. The exchange was set to unfold in a controlled manner, but as with any high-stakes situation, there were inherent risks. Our goal was to ensure that everything proceeded smoothly while maintaining safety and professionalism. Unfortunately, the plan took an unexpected turn when the situation escalated into a physical altercation. The meeting begins. Setting the tone. Initial interaction. I greeted Stephen as planned, maintaining a calm and composed demeanor. The conversation began with small talk to create a relaxed atmosphere. The hidden recording devices captured the entire interaction, ensuring that every detail was documented. Presentation of cash. After some preliminary discussion, I placed the envelopes of cash on the table, as previously planned. The purpose of the exchange was clearly stated, and I aimed to handle the situation with precision and professionalism, the unexpected turn rising. Tensions, Stephen's reaction. Initially, Stephen seemed cooperative, but his demeanor began to shift. As we discussed the terms, I noticed signs of agitation. His responses became defensive, and he started questioning the legitimacy of the exchange. Escalation. As the conversation progressed, Stephen's agitation escalated. He grew increasingly confrontational, raising his voice and displaying aggressive body language. The tension in the cafe became palpable, and I knew we had to manage the situation carefully. The physical altercation. Confrontation. Verbal conflict. Stephen's resistance turned into verbal aggression. He accused me of deceit and threatened to involve the authorities. Despite my attempts to de-escalate the situation, Stephen's behavior became more erratic. Physical altercation. Suddenly, Stephen made a move towards me, and the situation turned physical. He attempted to grab the money from the table aggressively. I reacted instinctively to protect myself and the cash. The altercation became chaotic, with Stephen and I exchanging blows. Protecting my wife's safety. Brittany, who had been observing from a nearby table, was visibly distressed. Seeing the escalation, she attempted to intervene, but the situation quickly became unsafe for her. I was determined to ensure her safety above all else. Intervening. In the midst of the altercation, I shouted for Brittany to move away from the scene. Michael, who had been discreetly observing, quickly moved to protect her and guide her to safety. Handling the situation disengagement. Breaking free. I managed to disengage from Stephen and create some distance. The physical confrontation ended with Stephen retreating, his aggression tempered by the realization that he was not in control of the situation. Emergency response. Michael swiftly contacted local authorities, informing them of the situation and requesting immediate assistance. The cafe staff, alerted by the commotion, also helped to manage the chaos and ensure everyone's safety. Post-altercation actions. Aftermath. Assessing the situation. Once the authorities arrived, I provided a detailed account of the events. Michael and I reviewed the recordings and documentation from the exchange to ensure that we had a comprehensive record of the incident. Medical attention. Brittany and I, along with any others affected by the altercation, sought medical attention as needed. Thankfully, the injuries were minor, but the psychological impact was significant. Legal and strategic follow-up. Filing a report. Police report. A formal report was filed with the police, detailing the altercation and the events leading up to it. The evidence collected, including recordings and witness statements, was presented to support our case. Legal consultation. We continued to work with our legal team to navigate the aftermath of the confrontation. This included assessing any legal implications and planning further actions to address the situation. Emotional and practical recovery. Counseling and support. The physical and emotional impact of the altercation was significant. Brittany and I sought counseling to address the trauma and to strengthen our relationship in the aftermath of the incident. Reevaluation of security. We reevaluated our security measures to ensure that similar incidents could be avoided in the future. This included reviewing our safety protocols and making necessary adjustments. Final thoughts. The confrontation at the exchange was an unexpected and challenging development. Despite our meticulous planning, the situation escalated beyond our control. The priority remained to ensure the safety of everyone involved, particularly Brittany, and to handle the aftermath professionally. The incident underscored the complexity of high-stakes confrontations and the importance of having robust safety measures in place. Seeking legal action. Initial response and evidence gathering. Assessment and documentation. Review of evidence. After the confrontation at the cafe, Michael and I meticulously reviewed all the evidence captured by our recording devices. This included both video and audio recordings of the altercation, as well as any documentation related to the money exchanged. Detailed account. We compiled a comprehensive account of the events, including statements from Brittany, Michael, and any other witnesses present at the scene. This documentation was crucial in providing a clear and detailed narrative of what transpired. Filing a police report. Reporting the incident. We approached the local police to file a formal report about the confrontation. I provided a detailed account of the events, including the physical altercation and Stephen's aggressive behavior. The recordings and documentation were presented to support our case. Reporting the disappearance. In addition to reporting the confrontation, we informed the police about Stephen's disappearance. We explained that he had not been seen since the incident and expressed our concerns for his well-being, given the violent nature of the confrontation. Cooperating with law enforcement. Assisting with the investigation. Michael and I fully cooperated with the police investigation. We provided access to the recordings, witness statements, and any other relevant evidence. Our goal was to assist law enforcement in understanding the situation and locating Stephen. Providing updates. We kept in regular contact with the police to receive updates on the investigation and to provide any additional information as needed. This ensured that we were actively involved in the process and could address any emerging issues. Legal consultation. Consulting with an attorney. We sought advice from a legal expert to understand our rights and options regarding the situation. The attorney provided guidance on how to proceed with legal action against Stephen, considering both the physical altercation and his previous actions. Discussing potential charges. The attorney discussed the possibility of filing charges related to the confrontation, such as assault or harassment. We considered the implications of pursuing legal action and weighed the potential outcomes. Navigating the legal process. Filing a civil suit. Consideration of a lawsuit. Given the circumstances, we explored the option of filing a civil lawsuit against Stephen for damages related to the confrontation and any emotional distress caused. The attorney provided guidance on the legal grounds for such a suit and the potential compensation we could seek. Preparing the case. If we decided to proceed with a civil suit, we would need to prepare a case by gathering all relevant evidence, including recordings, witness statements, and medical reports. This preparation was essential for building a strong case in court. Monitoring Stephen's status. Ongoing search. The police continued their search for Stephen, using the information provided in our report. We remained vigilant and followed any developments in the case, ensuring that we were informed of any updates regarding his whereabouts or actions. Evaluating further actions. Based on the police investigation and Stephen's response, we evaluated whether additional legal actions were necessary. This included considering options such as restraining orders or other protective measures if Stephen was located. Emotional and practical impact. Addressing emotional impact. Counseling and support. The legal process and the aftermath of the confrontation had a significant emotional impact. Brittany and I continued to seek counseling to address the trauma and stress caused by the incident. Support network. We leaned on our support network of friends and family to navigate the emotional challenges and to provide reassurance during the legal proceedings. Managing practical considerations. Adjusting to changes. The ongoing legal process required adjustments to our daily routines and planning. We ensured that we managed these changes effectively, balancing legal responsibilities with personal and professional commitments. Ensuring safety. We took additional steps to ensure our safety and the security of our family, given the potential for Stephen's continued threats or actions. Improving relationship through counseling. Recognizing the need for counseling. Acknowledging the impact. Emotional toll. The recent events had taken a significant emotional toll on both Brittany and me. The confrontation, combined with the infidelity and subsequent legal actions, left our relationship strained and fragile. We both recognized that repairing the damage required more than just time and effort. It needed professional intervention. Desire for healing. Despite our best intentions, we understood that healing from such deep wounds required external support. We wanted to rebuild trust, improve communication, and address the underlying issues that contributed to the conflict. Finding a marriage counselor. Research and selection. We researched potential marriage counselors, focusing on professionals with experience in dealing with infidelity and high-conflict situations. We considered recommendations from trusted friends and looked for credentials that aligned with our needs. Initial consultation. We scheduled an initial consultation with a counselor who specialized in helping couples navigate betrayal and repair relationships. The first meeting was crucial in assessing the counselor's approach and determining if it was a good fit for both of us. Beginning the counseling process. Setting goals. Defining objectives. During our initial sessions, the counselor helped us define our goals for therapy. We aim to rebuild trust, enhance communication skills, and address the emotional fallout from the recent events. Creating a plan. We worked with the counselor to create a structured plan for our sessions. This included identifying specific issues to address, setting realistic expectations, and establishing a timeline for progress. Exploring underlying issues. Addressing infidelity. A significant portion of our counseling focused on understanding the impact of infidelity on our relationship. We explored the emotional and psychological aspects of betrayal and worked on processing our feelings. Improving communication. We learned techniques to improve our communication, including active listening, expressing emotions constructively, and addressing conflicts in a healthy manner. The counselor provided exercises and tools to help us practice these skills. Rebuilding trust. Gradual process. Rebuilding trust was a gradual process that required patience and consistent effort. We set small, achievable goals to demonstrate reliability and commitment to each other. Transparency and accountability. The counselor emphasized the importance of transparency and accountability. We worked on being open about our feelings, actions, and intentions to rebuild a sense of security in our relationship. Strengthening the relationship. Shared activities. To strengthen our bond, we engaged in shared activities that fostered connection and intimacy. This included spending quality time together, participating in hobbies, and creating new memories as a couple. Setting boundaries. We discussed and established healthy boundaries to protect our relationship from external pressures and potential conflicts. This included setting clear expectations and addressing any issues that arose promptly. Ongoing efforts and maintenance. Regular check-ins. Session frequency. We continued attending counseling sessions regularly, as recommended by the counselor. These sessions provided a space to address ongoing issues, review progress, and make any necessary adjustments to our plan. Feedback and reflection. We regularly reflected on our progress and provided feedback to each other and the counselor. This helped us stay focused on our goals and ensure that we were making meaningful strides in our relationship. Building resilience. Handling setbacks. We learned to handle setbacks and challenges with resilience. The counselor guided us in navigating difficulties and reinforced the importance of persistence and commitment to the healing process. Celebrating progress. We celebrated milestones and achievements in our journey. Recognizing and appreciating the positive changes helped reinforce our dedication to improving our relationship. Final reflections. Embracing the journey. Personal growth. The counseling process not only helped us address the issues in our relationship, but also contributed to personal growth. We gained a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other, which strengthened our bond. Commitment to the future. Through counseling, we reaffirmed our commitment to each other and to building a healthier, more resilient relationship. We understood that ongoing effort and communication were essential to maintaining our progress. Moving forward. Building a stronger relationship. With the support of our counselor, we moved forward with a renewed sense of purpose and connection. Our relationship was stronger and more understanding, having weathered the storm of betrayal and confrontation. Continued support. We remained open to seeking support in the future if needed. The counseling experience taught us the value of professional guidance and the importance of addressing issues proactively. Seeking help from a marriage counselor was a pivotal step in our journey to repair and strengthen our relationship. Through structured therapy, we addressed the impact of infidelity, improved our communication, and rebuilt trust. The process required dedication and effort, but ultimately led to a more resilient and fulfilling partnership.